Welcome, it's great to have you here. Today we will be polishing by hand. This means arm strength is required today without a machine. We're taking a look at the tailgate of the BMW E, my current vehicle project, and there will be a lot more video content created. And I had the brilliant idea, how about we make this surface nice again by hand, or at least half of it, and I can share some tips with you. What should you maybe have at home? Are polishes that are usually used for polishing machines also suitable? Or do I maybe need to buy a polish that can only be worked by hand? Let's get started. We'll take a look at this together. So, you see, I've already set up my workspace today. The tripod is ready, the equipment is ready, but first let's take a look at the surface, and I think it's also ready for polishing. So here we really have a surface of just under kilometers. The vehicle was built in 2001, and you can see that it hasn't necessarily been treated in a way that makes the paint look really good. I also don't think any polishing has ever been done here because the paint is so heavily scratched and dull that we can only see the scratches as a light haze. So they're not really clearly defined, but we also have some deeper scratches here. But overall the surface is very, let's say, cloudy and grayish. And normally this is a really strong metallic black. And I want to test together with you how much we can achieve by hand, or if I should rather recommend using a polishing machine. And you can already see, in terms of equipment, I actually have exactly what we always use when working with a machine. That means I have the Sonax polish here. I also have a sharper version, namely the Ultimate Cut 6-3. I'll get the X right away. It's still there at the back. And then we can do it together, because I always say it very clearly. Polishing by hand really is a strenuous task. Especially with this paint, I'm really curious to see what we can get out of it. We're also going to test a very sharp combination, namely the heavy cut pad. And you know, these pads from the polishing machine set, and we're not starting with a finish pad either, because we need to replace the power of the polishing machine. And I think you've seen this just in my old videos as well. It's just barely doable. And I'm going to do this in fast forward now, otherwise it will take way too long. The simplest thing you can do is spread a bit of polish on the surface. You can hear that, it's like sandpaper. The paint is so worn out, it's like I'm rubbing it with 1,000 grit sandpaper. Incredible. So spreading the polish. When you're polishing by hand, feel free to use a bit more product so you have a nice glide film. Apply some pressure on the surface and keep the speed up. Speed and then just rub over the surface. These slight squeaking noises are completely normal, as if you were going over it with sandpaper. Even though we already have a good amount of polish on here, the friction noise is just so high that it makes you feel warm right away. That's ideal for the cold winter months. You can also try both methods, either in circular motions or in straight lines. Choose the technique that feels better for you, something that might be a bit more comfortable, because it really strains your arm muscles and you can't keep it up for half an hour. It's really super exhausting. And that's why we've already established the first point. Polishing by hand is very time consuming and of course requires a lot of effort. So you can already tell from my voice, it's not exactly the most pleasant. With a polishing machine, it's a completely different world. But we can just polish this area a bit. The next thing we'll see is that polishing by hand is quite difficult in terms of achieving an even finish. And there we already have a very clear difference. But we can see it still doesn't look really good. And that is simply because the polishing grains from EG or from your heavy cut polish combined with your very strong pad really generates a very high level of friction. And cutting performance by hand and the polishing grain can't be processed further in a way that it blends well into the finish. And you can see here quite nicely that we already have a certain reduction in scratches. And that's already impressive to begin with. Now it's about removing these fine, let's say, sanding marks that we've created. That's why I'm going to put the tape over here and work with the finishing polish. We'll just switch to the blue pad here. It's actually ideal for hand polishing. So in terms of handling, you can see that it definitely works. But whether you do this all over the vehicle, I don't know. Choose for yourselves. So guys, nice in a different way. This is really super exhausting. And if you're thinking about doing the whole car, please don't, guys. I'll tell you straight up how it is. The difference is definitely noticeable. And here about the Sunmatch 4. Here we see the grinding marks from the heavy cut action, and here we have now the polished surface. We also worked a bit on the finish. We still have a few light sanding marks on the side here. I didn't really get along well at the edge. And that's what I wanted to show you with this unevenness. So you really have to pay close attention to make sure you process all areas evenly. And most of the time, when you make these circular movements, you tend to leave the edge a bit out. So this is everything I want to show you here without any sugar coating. But you can see here, though I think the result is great considering that from here, we started. And now if you look at the ceiling lamp here, and the handheld lamp to that, that's quite a significant difference. And that by hand. So I almost never polish by hand because it just takes way too long. But it's always amazing. And you see this with other cars too, how much you can achieve here. But I think after the tailgate, my arm is going to fall off. That's why it would turn into a half-year project. With the machine, it goes much faster and easier. And take a look how well this works here. Also again with the lamp here on the side. Wow. Crazy, right? Really, really beautiful. Let's check again with the lamp. So, where I was able to reach well with the pad, it worked really well. I need to touch up here on the side. You can still clearly see these slight, let's say, sanding marks from the heavy cut action. But take a look at how dark the paint is again. Color refresh. It's a color refresh. Here, a section can still be polished back with the lamp. We still have a few small, fine scratches in there. Here's another really long scratch. If I hadn't told you that I did this by hand, you would definitely have said, sure, quickly with a machine. You can manage it that way too. But the result by hand. From here to here to here in 2 stages, just like with the polishing machine. Removing scratches. And then here the finish, as good as it gets. And with such a small area, everything is still relaxed. But I'm completely losing the motivation to do that on the whole tailgate. And that's why the polishing machine was invented, because it's just way too annoying in terms of the time it takes. Feel free to give it a try, and I'm not in your way at all. I really recommend the products for that. We didn't even have to use the Ultimate Cut 6.3, which we also have available. It worked really well as it is. And if you invest a little more time now, you'll also get the last fine scratches out. If they ever get too deep, that's the end of it. But you can manage it with a nice 2-step system. We now have the ZO 505 here, and then use the ZO 406 afterwards. We have the result, and for a quick job, like a spot polish, it's absolutely fine. But quite frankly and honestly, a roof, a hood, or the entire tailgate, that would just be too annoying for me. That's what the polishing machine is for, and we'll take a look at that in the next video. But it definitely warms you up while doing it. It definitely works wonders for the arm muscles. I also switched to the left side for a bit to train that side a little. But the result is definitely something to be proud of. So, hand polishing is definitely not something to be demonized. But for larger areas, please use a polishing machine. And you see it works just as well with the same products that we can use with the machine. That's why you can also switch it up a bit, depending on what you have equipped there. Thank you very much for watching. The other side, we'll do that with a machine, right? In the next video. Until then, you're Sebastian. Hey guys.